Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, founder of RecTools.io. As you know by now, RecTools is the only whole-of-market directory of the recruitment supply chain to your recruitment business or your talent acquisition team. So if you're looking for a new CRM, a new payroll provider, maybe you're looking into automation software, maybe you want to find out about outsourcing your marketing, maybe you're looking at an employer of record. Anything you need for your recruitment business or for your talent acquisition team, head over to RecTools.io. It's free to access, free to review, and will always be that way. My guest today reached out to me actually because he's been working incredibly hard on the growth and the scalability and the sustainability, more importantly, of his recruitment business. And he kind of wanted to start sharing that a bit more. We all know what it's like when you're running a recruitment agency, your head's down, you're constantly focused, and a lot of the times you don't get to almost shout about the successes and share what you're doing, that is working. So been a lot of doom and gloom in 2024. A lot of agencies were struggling and we put a lot of spotlight on that. But today I'm really pleased to invite Danny Phillips onto the podcast from Grafters Recruitment to talk us through kind of the things that they're doing that are working and doing so well. So look, mate, first of all,
thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Do you want to do a bit of an intro, kind of tell us about yourself, your background, Grafters, and then we'll kind of go from there?
How far am I going back here?
Well, however far you're whatever is relevant,
No problem.
Yeah. I was born in 1980.
Yeah, that's very boring. So worked my way into recruitment, or fell into recruitment like most people do, straight out of school, straight into an industrial agency, and haven't looked back since really. Probably worked for 2 or 3 different companies before moving to Grafters. 15 years ago now, we completed a management buyout at Grafters, me and 2 other gentlemen. We had 1 branch then, and things have gone from, just kept growing from there. So we've opened since then in Peterborough, Rugby. Rugby came off the back of some excellent success we'd had with a client actually, and we'll come on to that hopefully a bit later about how a lot of our business wins are off the back of just doing a good job, just actually following through with what we've told a client we can do. So off the back of that, we opened Rugby, which was off the back of a massive contract win, our biggest yet. 80 drivers a day, from nothing to 80 drivers a day was such a challenge. We were working around the clock, registering drivers. We were like, how do we find these drivers? And this is back in the day of advertising in a newspaper, in a national newspaper. So that went really well. We then opened in Basildon and most recently in Cannock 4 years ago. That's gone from strength to strength as well. So all of our branches are now at a level where they're looking after big national clients. Mm-hmm. We've now got a team throughout the business that are structured in a way that we can support all that, both remotely and with locations close to clients. We do have some clients that are dotted about, nowhere near any of our offices. But a lot of our success and that growth has been down to us being honest with clients and delivering a service that we're just telling them that we can deliver. It's not a case of us sitting in front of them with big fancy presentations, although our presentations are big and fancy. But a lot of it is just being honest and saying, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and then following through with that and caring. So we've got to.
Can you give us some examples of that? Because you said that when we had our research call as well, right? And I find that really intriguing because most agencies spout the same old shit, right? It's always, we care and we're better because we're there quicker and we'll do this and we'll do that. And then like we established that actually 9 out of 10 of them, when push comes to shove, they're bound by their own kind of red tape and they don't go out above and beyond. Have you got examples of when you say, look, we're different and this is how?
Yeah, so just on that, where you say some agencies are bound by the red tape, I guess as an MD, I'm involved with a lot of this. I'm very hands-on. Yeah. We've got some great teams, and I'm not saying I micromanage them. A lot of them can just be left to it, and they'll provide this excellent service that I know we offer. But in terms of in a sales meeting or sitting down with a client for the first time, we're quite lucky in the fact that if a client turns around and says, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And what I mean by that is them saying, well, we want someone on site. Can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than a lot of our competitors who then have to go through a chain of command to get an answer to that, with myself, it's like, yes, we can. We can. It has to be worthwhile, of course, in terms of if they're having to.
It's not difficult to do the maths, though, is it? And go,
No.
it's going to cost me this much to put somebody on site. I can do it, but how much work am I getting off?
Absolutely.
And you're going to write that into a contract.
And just as much, even if it doesn't quite pay for itself, but you can see a bigger picture down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got more locations, and you go in there, you do a good job, it's going to lead to something else. Then we may even look at that and go, yeah, it makes sense too. We know that, and again, from how we delivering a USP or selling a USP in recruitment, it's very difficult because, like you say, we're all saying the same thing, we're all doing the same thing. Unfortunately, everyone in the business says compliance is a big deal for them. Is it actually for all of them? I'm not so sure.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it definitely is. And we can evidence that. The software we use goes a long way to that. And us showing clients, whether it's an existing client in an audit, and again, that can lead to further work if a client comes in to audit us and we excel in every area compared to what they're looking at from other agencies. They'll then off the back of that go, okay, well, let's bring you in here because actually we believe there's a bit of an issue in here. And we'll gain another site from that. So there's the compliance side, but then there's the actual caring. And I know every agency will say they care, our staff are this, they're that, but I generally believe all of our staff at Grafters care about what we're delivering to a client. And that could be answering the phone in the evenings and at night, and not just answering the phones. And we've had it before, unfortunately, where we've had people who will say, yeah, I'll have a look and I'll call you back. And that gets forgotten. And there's nothing more infuriating for a client than them thinking they're going to get a call back and them having to chase it an hour down the line going, how you getting on with that driver for tomorrow? Oh, actually, we haven't got anyone. It's like, well,
yeah, you've wasted.
You've got to call us back and let us know. But I know with us, we'll be hammering those phones until we can find someone. Again, we're quite lucky in the fact that we've been around for a long time now, so our databases are pretty extensive. And if a driver was registered with us a couple of years ago, we can go through all of their compliance remotely to get that up to speed in terms of license checks and so forth, making sure that they've signed all the latest procedures that we've got on file. But yeah, other than
so I suppose the same thing applies then, doesn't it? In the way that you're going, we don't overpromise, underdeliver with our clients. It's the same with the candidates, right? In that if you're treating them properly, making sure they never get a payday wrong, and they're not having to ring up and complain about not being paid or underpaid or whatever. Or I wasn't expecting my rate to include holiday pay, or I wasn't, which are all things that we know happen in this industry.
Yeah.
Then having a 20-year-old database with drivers in there, they're gonna know that actually it doesn't matter who it is that's calling me. If they're saying they're from Grafters, I know A, they're gonna look after me, B, they're gonna put me in a semi decent job, or they're gonna be honest with me. If it's gonna be a bit of a tough gig, they'll tell me.
Absolutely.
And that goes a long way because candidate stickiness is the hardest part in that market.
Absolutely. And anyone that's worked with HGV drivers will know that unless you give them an accurate picture of what that job is like, if it's in any way different, chances are it won't be for them. They need to know what's expected of them and what they're going to be doing. Otherwise, they'll turn up and go, I didn't realise it was that kind of work or that. And it won't be that they'll let you down, but they will just tell you and say, I don't want to go back. And then you've wasted, because with driving, 9 times out of 10, there's an assessment and induction involved.
Yeah.
Without that, you've wasted the client's money and time because they've had to take an assessor off the road and put them in front of your driver. So there's just absolutely no point with that. So if you're honest with the candidates as well. And again, in terms of, I think sometimes we forget, and all agencies do, that we all assume that everyone in the industry is working to them standards that should be expected of them. And that's candidates getting a KID document before each assignment. We do that, so the candidate knows laid out in front of them. We've got, a holiday policy, so they can see what their holiday calculation is and how that works. I don't believe that happens throughout the industry.
No.
So for us, it's massive that all these boxes are ticked before a candidate goes out to work for a client. If that's not the case, I don't want to be doing it. And I know back when I started in recruitment, it could be that someone would ring for a warehouse operative, and you'd be like, "No, we haven't got all their documents on file," and your boss might go, "Oh, but send them in." No, it's not how we'll work. It's not how we ever have. We just wouldn't do it. And we've had second tier agencies that we've used previously, and it's why we don't anymore. And we'd ring them and go, "Can you send over Johnny's license?" And you'd be waiting for it for ages, and you'd think, "You've not got that on file,
if you had this, it'd been straight over.
Yeah, it should be straight over." And for us, with our software, remotely from anywhere, we can attach it, send it. It's web-based. So anywhere in the world, a client can ring us and go, "We'd like this candidate's driving license," or anything that we've got on file that they need.
The important thing there is accepting or understanding though that when a client asks you for this sort of information and you delay responding for whatever reason, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
Absolutely.
And they don't forget that.
No.
And it becomes a concern.
Yeah.
And therefore, right now, and we had this, right? We had this in 2021 and 2022. There was a driver shortage, post-Brexit, all that sort of stuff. And so talent acquisition teams and HR teams and businesses were dealing with any agency they could to deal with any stuff they could, right?
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, no, our clients have just turned the tap off." No. Because the ones who did a good job and who have always historically done a good job, they're still dealing with them.
Absolutely.
They're not dealing with you anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, because you probably didn't get over the compliance documents when you were supposed to.
Yeah.
You probably held a bit too firm on the rates when they needed you to be a bit more flexible. These little things, they add up.
A lot of agencies did that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Put the rates right up for it. I mean, for us, whilst COVID was a torrid time for everyone, in terms of business procedures, it changed a lot for us that we've actually benefited from.
Mm-hmm.
Again, being able, our software, being able to register remotely. We'd always been heavily paper-based. We sat down with everyone for like an hour face-to-face, then filling out forms. That's all changed now. Like 95% of our registration can be done on your phone at home. But that wasn't the case. And obviously during COVID, you couldn't sit face-to-face with someone who wasn't in your household. So we were stuck. And we had to quite quickly look to how we can resolve that problem. We did. And we've never looked back since now. We've probably reduced the amount of paper we were using at that time was just incredible. New ink cartridge in the printer every week. So there's certain things we picked up in that have been much better for us. But you're right. I think some agencies during that period were like, right, we can stick our rates right up because clients are screaming out.
That's it.
But like you say, it does leave a bit of taste in the mouth. Alarm bells do ring with clients if they'll ring for something and you can't give it to them straight away. But for us, we've all, like I say, compliance is huge, always has been. Rates with clients, we've always looked at it and gone, okay, well, we don't want to, no one client's going to make us rich or, give someone the best commission they've ever had. But by doing things right with...
But if they did, they'd also be the same client that could make you just as poor, right?
Well,
how many businesses I can tell you from experience that rely so heavily on the one client, and when that tap turns off, for whatever reason, insolvency soon after.
Yeah.
Because the mix isn't there.
Absolutely. Well, when we completed our management buyout, funnily enough, we were quite condensed to one big client. Worryingly so, actually. And we looked at that and we were like, we've got to spread our clients. We've got to. But
I mean, to be fair, from a valuation point of view, it probably did you a favour.
Well,
so that was exactly the time for that to come on.
I mean, yeah, I suppose so. But in 2021, we brought on, we started building a sales team. We were like, right, we've for quite a while now, we've looked at having 360 consultants. And what I mean by that is they weren't genuine 360 consultants in the sense of they could do all of that perfectly. Unfortunately not. So we looked at it and went, right, okay, well, we've got people that are brilliant at talking to candidates, but they're very nervous on a sales call. So why would we take them away from what they're great at and start pushing them into something that they're not so good at? And of course they could improve over time, but I genuinely think for people that are not great at sales, they just don't want to do it.
No.
And it is very difficult.
You got to either enjoy it or not, right?
Absolutely. So we looked at it then and we were like, right, okay, so we need to build a sales team. So we took on Paige, who's now our sales director.
Yeah.
So she came in just doing sales to start with. As a regional sales manager, and is worked her way up to sales director within, I believe, 18 months, I think it was, might have even been less. And now she's doing brilliantly. She's got a team below her as well, and we've got people that sell and people that basically register temps, field bookings, and manage client relationships. And it works so well for us in terms of not trying to put square pegs in round holes, you know. And I know that's a saying that is used quite a lot, but in general for us it just makes so much sense to have the people sell that are comfortable selling, and that, again, they're not out there giving it the hard sell. They're likable people. They go out, they talk to clients, they talk through what we can deliver. It's not a hard sell. They talk them through it, and I genuinely believe clients work with you because they want to work with you. Yes, they might like what we have to offer, but in general, it's because the likability factor. And I think what's key then is when we then pass them accounts to the teams within the branches or the remote network, those teams, again, are very likable with clients. They'll be honest. And honesty is such a huge trait to have in our industry. I don't believe that many people are honest in our industry. But our teams
behave in a way that comes across dishonest. Do you know what I mean? They might be honest people, but because the culture of the business or the way the business is kind of operating, it comes across as dishonest.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think some of it as well may be them thinking that if they're too honest with the client, then the client's going to walk away. But again, from experience, that's not the case. Clients do appreciate honesty, and they'd much rather that. Let's face it, if you can't fill some bookings and you tell a client with enough notice, they can either pull in their own staff. Yes, they might do the worst thing and go to another agency, but what do you expect? But the more time you give them...
But equally, if they do that and the other agency fills it, you got to know why. You got to understand. You got to accept that. Hang on a minute, we didn't do the best job then because those candidates are out there.
Yeah,
we didn't get to them. So why was that?
Absolutely,
right?
And it can work in your favour as well, because if that other agency's charging £5 an hour more and paying a temp £3 an hour more, then of course they're going to find them temps because they're paying a lot more as well. So you can then come back to the client with that. But genuinely, that's not the case for us. We seem to cover most things our clients throw at us. I'm not going to say we're 100% fulfillment, because I think any agency out there that says they are is definitely lying. But we're honest with our clients, and we'll sit down with them and say, this is a peak period coming up. This is what we need to be able to deliver, whether it's guaranteeing bookings or being more flexible with start times, things like that. You know, we'll have genuine...
Right, okay, so you're So you're at a point now with your clients where actually you can almost work on an open book basis. That, look, listen, we're going to be stretched, therefore, for us to prioritise you, we need X, Y, and Z out of you, rather than just, yes, Mr. Client, I shall do that for you, Mr. Client, let me run away and find these people.
Again, I think that's another thing, that when we had this massive driver shortage in 2020, 2021, clients have become much more understanding on that side of the argument. Prior to that, most clients would be like finger pointing, you're the agency, you've got to cover it, you know, you've told us you can cover it. But no, there's much more of a mutual relationship there now, where they will listen. We wouldn't go and tell them how to run their logistics business because they're the experts at that. So they should listen to us when we're telling them what's going to help us get people through the door or manage to cover more bookings a day.
There's been an element of like a kind of a humbling, hasn't there, really? But I think your point about the likability factor is really, really important. I mean, I say on this podcast all the time, right, that the whole people buy from people thing is a dated concept. It's people buy from people they like, or people buy from people like them.
Yeah.
And so a good salesperson is able to establish very quickly, do we have a point of commonality? i.e., are you like me and therefore you're likely to do business with me?
Yeah.
Or if not, can I convince you that I'm the kind of person that you would like, you know, that you would happily sit down for an hour and give me an hour of your time, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And the second part to the psychology of behind the sales there is that people buy based on a emotion, right? They then justify that emotion with the facts.
Yeah.
Nobody goes into a car dealership and goes, right, I need it to be 50 mpg, I need this, I need this, I need this. Here's all the benefits of the car that I need. Then show me what's out there. They go in and go, I really like the look of the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They've already found something. They're emotionally attached to that vehicle for whatever reason. They need you to give them the facts to buy now, right? Same thing with your BDMs. Look, you know we're a recruitment agency. We know you need drivers. Let's put that to a side a minute.
Yeah.
Because there's 30,000 of us.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
And there's 50,000 of you. So we got to figure out how do we work together here.
Of course. And I think a lot of that is probably identified in the small talk you have at the beginning of a meeting.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, one of our sales guys, Duncan, he's well into his rugby. So he genuinely knows if he goes into a client who likes rugby, they've straight away they can have a chat about that, you know, and that does it. I guess it relaxes you both, and I think that's the other thing as well. It's much easier to sell your service when perhaps your guard's down and their guard's down as well, and it feels 90%
much like
this.
of a sales meeting should be shit chat.
Yeah.
They know what you do. They don't need you to bash them with the high res presentation of we do this and we do that and blah blah blah. All they need to know is, when I'm in the shit, am I going to like you enough to pick up the phone? Are you going to be honest with me and tell me the truth? Are you the kind of person that makes excuses? Are you the kind of person that's got a bit of integrity about you? I need to know these things.
Yeah.
And that only comes out when you have that shit chat, right?
Absolutely.
And you got the, I'm into rugby, you're into rugby, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that we're going to do business together either, right?
No.
It's about kind of breaking down those social barriers, in exactly the same way outside of the working world. That's how people make friends, or that's how people build relationships with people. For some reason, we were always taught when we were juniors, that people at work are different to the way they are outside of work.
Yeah.
Whereas now, certainly in 2025, you cannot appeal to the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy you're meeting with or the girl you're meeting with, it's not their business.
Yeah.
It's not money coming out of their pocket.
No, of course.
They have a budget that they are allowed to spend.
Yeah.
What you need to do is convince them that you're the person to spend that budget with. It doesn't matter to them who they spend it with. What they care about is, when I need drivers, I get drivers. But more importantly, when I call you, I'm not like trying to duck your call, or I'm not thinking, oh God, he's going to chew my ear off for an hour now. I really don't want to deal with this person.
I think beyond that as well. So absolutely, and that's with the BDMs, that's their job, and I think they know it very well. At least ours do. But then from there, it's okay. But I'm going to give you my business, and then who am I then dealing with, and what's that person going to be like? And I think there can be a concern from them that it then gets handed to someone who don't know the job, don't know
Historically, it was always a junior person, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? In the industrial world, generally speaking, it was somebody with under 12 months experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can speak some sort of Eastern European language, because that's where the majority of the staff are. And then there was always a cultural difference and like a communication barrier that got in the way.
And I think with that, and again, that's where it's important to us, is so when that gets handed over to the teams, we've got a really thorough process of the sales team talking to the branch then about what this business looks like.
Proper brief, yeah.
Absolutely. And whether it's them then taking them on site, if there's time, if the requirement justifies it. I mean, the requirement will always justify a client visit, even if they need one person. We're quite happy for the sales team or one of the BDMs to then take a consultant or a branch manager to site. But then once it's with them, that looking after them, nurturing the relationship and making sure that, and even if it is just a one-a-day booking, they're just as important to us. They really are, because we've seen how that relationship can grow into more. The client I mentioned earlier, where we ended up with an 80 a day contract from day one, that started from a site they gave us where they needed 2 drivers per day in this remote village, the hardest fill ever. It really was. And I think most weeks we were putting through a timesheet with a negative value because we'd have to pay someone extra to go there and cover the booking. But this client had always sort of dangled the carrot that, look, if you look after this site, when there's a bigger opportunity, we'll give it to you. And to be fair, they kept to their word and did. And for that sort of 12 months, we were running that smaller contract at what was a loss. And I know for some people that just doesn't seem like the correct business to do, but with this carrot that was being dangled, it was like, we've got to do it. And we did. And then it from there, it meant we moved to rugby. We opened a branch in rugby, and now in the Midlands we've got a really good base. We've got some brilliant clients, some fantastic teams, and yeah, I've got to shout out to our teams in all of our branches because they are brilliant. And there's no point me sitting here telling everyone about how great I feel the Grafters name and brand and teams are if they're not then delivering on it. And I'm not yet. And it's massive for me that I can look at our team and go, yeah, you know, they're brilliant. I don't have to get involved. Yeah. I don't have to micromanage anyone. I speak with a lot of our clients on a weekly basis at least. I dial into many of the weekly meetings that are going on. We've got a big sales meeting later this week on Friday, which is hopefully going to lead to the award of another big piece of business off the back of just doing what we say we're going to do with a client. And fingers crossed that will progress as we hope it will. But I love being involved with all of that. I do. I can't imagine a time when I don't want, you know, I just want to, I'm not sure how, for some people, getting to the top of the tree is sitting in your office and just looking at facts and figures and making sure that the company's trending in the right way. But for me, it's much more than that. I love being out there speaking to clients. I love being in the branches, seeing our teams, talking to our teams. Probably means I have too much Nando's because I genuinely buy my Nando's each time I'm at each branch, or at least a coffee. But yeah, I love that part of it.
But then perhaps that's why they care so much, because you know they at a very basic level they know the MD is going to be around at some point, and and you know what I mean, like, is going to be looking under the hood. But more importantly, they see you leading from the front as opposed to from the top going, you all need to be doing this anyway. I'm playing golf next week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I've had that feedback from our teams as well, where they may have worked for other agencies or other businesses, and they're like, you just don't have that contact with the MD. You don't. You have your line manager or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, that's about the closest person you've got to. You know, a leader is the person who's the branch manager.
Absolutely.
And actually, you know, under times of stress and duress, the line manager or the branch manager is probably the one walking around bare with a sore head, being pissed off at the upper management because they're getting it in the neck.
That can happen, absolutely.
You know. And so if that's the only kind of vision of leadership that the troops on the ground get, it's not great.
And I think that's the other good thing about me being within the branches quite a lot is we don't make our teams, they don't have an amount of calls they have to make a day, an amount of drivers they have to register per week, or I keep saying driving, we do industrial work now. We supply warehouse staff, nowhere near on the scale that we do driving, but it is part of our business that's growing. And that's naturally growing, really, again, off the back of us doing a good job with supplying drivers and clients turning around saying, have you got some warehouse pods you can send us? And that progressing and growing from there. And that has really grown over the last 12 months for us. Still probably only represents about 10% of our turnover, but it is growing now, the industrial side, and it's hopefully something we can keep pushing with the relationships we have. But yeah, so we don't have these numbers that people have got to hit. And I know when there's people that have come to work for us and they're like, what, I haven't got to make 100 sales calls a week to, it's more than that in some cases, because if you don't hit all them numbers for some agencies, you won't get your commission. And you know, there's all these,
regardless of what you've built.
There's all these bullet points. But because I'm out there seeing it, like as long as I can see it happening in front of me, then I don't need to look at all that nitty gritty detail. I can see what's going on.
You trust your branch managers to know that if there if someone's not quite pulling their weight, that they'll A, be able to identify that, and B, be able to work on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll soon see it in numbers and the way shifts are looking, I'll look at how many client visits a branch has got or something like that, but I wouldn't be like, why have you only got one client visit next week? What's all that about? I know that could be for a number of reasons. It could be that they're having a push on driver recruitment. It could be that actually, you know, we just, you know what, we had a rough week actually. We only managed to line one up, but we've got 2 or 3 lined up for the next week, and we've still got time to push more there. I don't look. Sales is massive, is key. I prefer speaking to our branch managers saying get out and see existing clients, you know, because I can tell you now there'll be other agencies going in there and dropping them off you know, it's like donuts. Is
Yeah,
the
of course,
usual one.
yeah.
And as much as we all joke and go, "Oh, agencies dropping in donuts," clients do love it. You know, who don't like a donut?
I was on a conference call about 3-4 days ago with 5 TA leaders, because it probably already happened by the time this goes out, but I'm going to be on stage at the Recruitment Agency Expo, right, with TA leaders. And
is that the London one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It. And the conversation is, it's a live podcast. Here's people who are heads of TA.
Yep.
They're going to tell you what they want from these agencies, right? And actually, this conversation came up, and they went, "Oh, we know it sounds cheesy and stuff, but yeah, we quite like it when they drop off stuff.
Yeah.
We quite like it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, really?" Because I always thought it was a bit of a pain in the bum, and they're like, "No, it's nice. It's nice to be treated. It's nice to have people do that."
Yeah.
You know, what we don't like is somebody that's like, "I'm in reception, just turned up unannounced." You know, but yeah, absolutely, that's a good way to open the door and get some face time, because to build a relationship with us, you need FaceTime, not just keep constantly badgering us on the phone.
Absolutely.
So actually, yeah, backing up what you're saying, that I've, from a TA leader's mouths themselves, there's a panel of 5 of them, they all went, "Yeah, absolutely, we love it."
Yeah, and I think, and it does get bashed a bit, especially on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You know, people dropping off the merch and so forth. But even with the merchandise, I saw someone was saying they got ice scrapers, and we've done the ice scrapers thing before.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as people will sort of take the piss out of it, they are useful. If your car doesn't, if it's not a brand new car that clears it really quickly, they're really, because what's the alternative? You know, you don't really have your bank card on you anymore with Apple Pay, so what are you gonna do? So yeah, look, I think we spend quite a lot on marketing material. We need to be better. We do, and that's not marketing material in terms of things we can hand over to a client, but I think that's in general. You know, we spoke about this, our website, our
brand. You're at a point now where actually you've got the fundamentals of a fantastic business, but to push on that little bit further, you now need to start taking branding a little bit more seriously.
Absolutely.
And online presence a little bit more seriously, and maybe even looking at people like your BDM team and going, okay, how do I invest in their personal brand so that clients know who they are when they call, as opposed to they have to explain who they are. You know, because that little nuance change makes the world of difference. You know, I got to a point where in running our recruitment business, I was so focusing on personal brand that I would go to you know, like networking events, or I would go to on client visits, and I'd be walking, you know, big businesses, like big like desks everywhere and stuff, and people would look over and they'd wave, or there's someone send me a LinkedIn message like, you're the guy from LinkedIn, like, you know, because it was important for me to be like, right, I need people to know who I am.
Yeah, of course, because
that makes my life to sell much easier. You know,
I think this is the start of that journey for us as well. Me being on here, showing people what's beyond Grafters, the name, I think is key, and I'm definitely not the most interesting person in our business. So you're right, getting the BDM people out there doing similar things, or just growing their personal brand alongside the Grafters brand, of course. But I think for most of our teams, I don't think anyone within our branch really has much online presence on LinkedIn. The sales team do, but no, I don't think the people within the branches do.
But there's so much knowledge within these branches, right? Local knowledge, that actually you could go, guys, I need you all to come together and put together a newsletter or a webinar or whatever, and go, we're going to put all our research together. We're going to put it into like this digital asset. And that's going to be the the BDM team's reason to call. Right? It's, hey, we've got a branch in Rugby, you know, Rugby, gateway to the entire fucking UK, right, where they're all based around that kind of, you know, Northamptonshire and everywhere else, right? So we speak to tons of people in this area. We've done a research project on X, Y, and Z. We've collated that information. Would you like a copy? Yeah, go on then. Cool.
Yeah, of course.
When can I come out and see you? Oh, can't you email me? Absolutely not. This is my way of getting in front of you. Lol. You know?
Exactly. Yeah,
but people like that. They appreciate that, because it's like, okay, I'll see what you're doing. And do you know what? Yeah, fine. Because what you're saying you've got sounds interesting to me.
And if it's going
to cost me a cup of coffee and and sharing a pack of donuts with you to listen to you talk about it, cool, fine. Happy days.
Do you know what? And again, this is where we've got to open our minds a bit in terms of marketing and what more we can do. because I do. I've got no training in marketing, and I do look at what our competitors do, and I'll be like, that's brilliant. That, like, how does someone take their mind to a place where they think of that? Because for me, it's like, no, it's like, right, let's have a think about marketing. Oh yeah, let's say, like, we can word emails like this or do that. We probably need to start engaging now with an outside team who can help us with that. Do I think we're in a position to have someone in a marketing position full time? Probably not right now.
I don't think you need it. But the thing is, I don't think that's what's needed.
You're the king of the outsource, really.
This is it, mate. Honestly, me doing what I do now makes me kick myself. For there's so many things that I wish I knew when I was running my agency. But the key part here is to go, well, if I hire an in-house person, that person, I don't want them speaking to candidates and doing market research. I certainly don't want them speaking to clients.
Yeah.
Yes, they could send out an email campaign, but that could fuck up our email domain and actually ruin the strength of the domain. Because if no one knows who this person is and they all ignore the email, well, all the other hard work everyone else is going to do is go down the pan.
Yeah.
So what you need is marketing strategy. The people doing the do, you've already got them.
Yeah.
You've got resources who speak to hundreds of candidates a week. And all you need is your marketing person to go, guys, we have a question of the week. I need you to ask every single one of your temps. That question is this. And we're going to do that 4 times. And that way, what I've then built is here's what the consensus is within this particular market, within this particular industry.
Yeah.
We are the ones that are driving this information. Let's take that to market. Give that to the BDMs, and the BDMs go, brilliant. Because actually, I'm running out of reasons to call Nestle.
Yeah, of course.
I'm running out of reasons to call Wincanton.
Yeah.
I can't keep ringing them with the same old shit. This is great. I've got something different to tell them about. And then you go, what else do you want to know? Oh, well, actually, it'd be really interesting to know this thing or this change that's coming. All right, cool. So then you go back to your resourcing team and you go, guys, 100 candidates a week you speak to. I want every single one to answer this question now.
Yeah.
And then you go next week, hey, Wincanton, I've got more information for you. And by the time you've done that so many times, there's that relationship A is built, but B, the value exchange piece exists. And then they're going to be thinking, should really fucking do something for this guy. He or she is here every week, always giving us information, always bringing us some donuts. I should probably just chuck them a bone every now and then to keep them happy.
You told me I'd learn something in this podcast, and there you go. That's a good takeaway, that one, definitely.
Yeah. Little bits. I'll pick up these little bits from different people. I'm like, that's great. Absolutely. That's great. We'll do that.
I definitely think you're right with the outsourcing. I believe we need to look at that more, and it is something for this year. We're doing a few different things this year that we haven't done before. We've got Stronger Together coming into our rugby office later this week, where all of our branches are coming up to rugby and they're delivering a training day for us. Nice. Now we've been a business partner of Stronger Together for, I think it's about 5 years now. Obviously, modern slavery is a big issue within our industry, and it's something, again, we take very seriously. So we usually send a couple of people each year on a training course and then deliver a web-based that they then come back with their thoughts from it and deliver that to the rest of the company. And that's always worked quite well. But I think when you're sat in one of them, and I've sat in a couple, and you see the stories and hear what's gone on and how you identify it, they're brilliant to actually take away and go, right, I need to look out. And you come away from there thinking, right, we need to be on the ball with making sure that can't happen within our supply chain. So to have them coming in and deliver that, I think is going to be huge for our business. And I think off the back of that, there'll be a want for more training like that for our staff as well. Because
do you know what you could do with that though? Reach out to existing clients and prospect clients and tell them you're running this course. Yeah. You got these these guys are coming in to train your guys. Would you guys like to attend?
Would like to come along. Yeah, see, and again, this is where my mind works differently. So in my view, we'll get some footage or some pictures, and then we'll deliver that online after. Yeah. But like you say,
but that's showing off what you've done,
rather than
if you invite them on. The worst they can say is no, thank you. Absolutely. But it will remember in their mind that this agency, no other agency offered this to us. Yeah, these guys did. Absolutely. That was really cool of them. And a handful will turn up, and they'll get to see and meet your team, all the different people in your team. See how well they gel together, how much they give a shit. Yeah. Guys, I need you to be on your best behaviour. We've got 4 clients coming in today. They're going to be watching, so don't be sat there taking the piss and all that sort of stuff. You know, like
course.
best behaviour, guys. Like Ofsted are coming in, sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But
yeah.
You'd be surprised, how many like TA professionals and TA leaders will be open to sending their teams out, and HR professionals will be open to attending that sort of stuff. This is the value they want from agencies. Look, we've already spent money on this outsource, training company coming in to train our guys. What's it going to cost me to get another 10 seats and go out to my clients and my prospect clients and invite them to come on board?
Yeah.
You know, nothing really.
I should have brought a notepad. So I'm going to forget all these takeaways, and I've only got a couple of days now to invite them along. But I will. It's a great.
But they will. But
no, it's
will
brilliant.
Come.
And like you say, worst case, if they say no, it's still in their mind that but grafters are doing that.
That's it.
And look, not every client's on LinkedIn and going to see that message that we deliver after from it. But yeah, so we're just coming back to that. So like with that, and we're trying to do more things around our teams. Bringing them together really, because it's great. You know, we have the Christmas party once a year and everyone it's really corny to say out in our industry when you say we're all like a family, but at Grafters, everyone is really close. Now, I don't know if they've got a We Hate the Boss WhatsApp group that they all chat a lot on, because they are a lot closer than I ever thought they were. But we come together once a year for the Christmas party, and everyone is really tight, really close, and even to the point where, you know, you'll have our rugby branch arranging a night out with our Hoddesdon branch, and you think you only see each other like once a year. You speak. There's no real need for them to speak on a daily basis, but we are like a family with that. They do chat quite a lot, but for me that's great. Like, we want everyone's pulling in the same direction, even to the point where, so we're not one of these agencies that has a hard cut off with postcodes and delivery areas where, you know, there could be a client where two. So I guess a great example is Coventry being a client. We was onboarding a client in Coventry. You got a rugby office and our Cannock office.
Right.
So geographically, rugby's closer, obviously. But we looked at it and went, but what that client needs is industrial. Cannock supply a lot of industrial. They're used to it. Rugby's predominantly driving. We should give it to Cannock, because Cannock, you know, they're going to be much more suited to cover that. Yeah. Which we did, and they've delivered a great service. And our rugby branch were like, yes, that's absolutely cool.
That was the thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know in other agencies there might have been some heads butted on that, because, you know, you're taking away margin or turnover for my branch. And again, it just comes back to where everyone can just see the bigger picture, that if the company's doing well, you know, everyone within it's going to do well. You know, it doesn't mean if there's someone there not pulling their weight, you know, they won't get a little nudge on. But generally, we don't have to do that. I don't.
Yeah,
can't remember the last time
I think that you're probably doing things that you don't even realise are valuable to these guys, right? When you create a culture of fear and leading with an iron fist, and KPIs are the most important thing, the revenue bottom line is the most important thing. When you prioritize certain behaviors and certain activities over well-being and stepping forward as a business, that's what creates that sort of like, well, that's my patch.
Yeah.
Oh, you're taking revenue out of, you know, you wouldn't get pissed off about losing potential revenue if things are really, really good, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Take like it's a weird analogy, but it makes sense in this scenario of, you know, we had parents who were, you know, struggling financially, and in the winter it would be put a jumper on, or you know, if the heating was on and you opened the door for too long, you'd get fucking shouted at.
Yeah.
But when things are good and you don't care about the heating bill, you'll whack up the heating and you won't think twice about it, right?
Absolutely.
It's the same thing. You won't think twice about, oh, well, why have you given it to Cannock for? But we need that money. Yeah, exactly. You think you need that revenue, which is why it's a problem. But what you've done, without either intentionally or not, but what you've done in terms of the way you lead in the business is that's not a priority. No. The priority is not like, you know, if you miss revenue this month, you're out the door. The priority is you miss revenue. Why? Let's look at why, and what do we need to do to change that?
Absolutely.
Because I don't want you missing revenue.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think you're absolutely right. And it comes back to as well with, you know, that we've got our teams that are, and again, much like myself, I I could be wrong here, but I don't think there's many of our teams that have come out of university with a graduation. There's one or two, but not many.
It wasn't a prerequisite for your business.
Definitely not. And I don't believe it is in recruitment in general, especially not in industrial recruitment.
No, I don't agree.
But you know, they're great people, and that's the key. And we don't want to turn them into robots. That's never been the case. We don't want them to have to hit hard numbers each week. Of course, each branch has a budget that we look to, because there needs to be some kind of measurement. But in terms of their day-to-day productivity, there's just, for me, it's never been. And there's probably directors out there that are going, this is not the way to run a business. But in my opinion, it works, and it works very well. And I guess the proof's in the pudding for us.
But it works. The key is, though, it works for your business because of the people you brought in, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If I'm running a business that requires me to be on top of everybody and KPI the arse off them, it's because I've hired people who can't be left to with their own devices, who need me to give them a kick up the arse every now and then. So then you got to look at, right, you either enjoy running a business like this, or you got to change your hiring strategy. Yeah. Because you keep hiring people who need chasing. Yeah. You know, you're going to hire a bunch of adults and treat them like adults. Guess what? Yeah. They don't behave like adults. Absolutely. You hire a bunch of adults and treat them like children. Guess what? Yeah. It's not difficult.
It's exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. I think again we've had people join us from other agencies, and they're like, this is a lot more relaxed than than what we're used to, and we're like, yeah, that's how we like it to be, you know, but not so relaxed that people are just sat there
not doing anything.
Not doing anything. No. But we do, you know, and I can be pretty bad for it when I'm in the office. I'll say to someone, how was your weekend? And I'm quite happy to have a 10-minute chat with someone about their personal life, because again, it's for me, that's what probably makes me different to any other director out there that would walk in, maybe just grunt and go and park themselves away in an office. And I did when we opened up our Rugby office. Well, when we moved to our second location, because our first location in Rugby was horrific. It weren't great. We found out someone was actually sleeping in there at night. Really, really random. Not someone that worked for us, just a guy that was because it was like a serviced offices, and anyone could walk in between the hours of 9 and 6. Or 8 and 6. So what he was doing is at like 5:45 walking in and hiding in the toilet.
Bless him. Right,
so look, you got. I mean, he actually the reason how he got caught is he broke into someone else's office, and that's how he got caught. But yeah, so that office was it wasn't the greatest. So we moved to this much nicer office in Rugby, and within that there was an office that I could have, and I was like, yeah, look. I'm MD, I've got my own office. And I think I lasted a week and I was like, this isn't me. This is not me. I like to be sat out there with the team, being involved in the chit chat and the bookings and hearing what's going on. And again, it's not me micromanaging, because I generally don't get involved with anything, but I just love the buzz of it all. I can't imagine taking myself away from that. And again, like if we onboard a client for the first year, we'll onboard a client, and we'll have, we'll set up a team email address, which could be like, that client's name at graftersrecruit.co.uk, and that'll go to everyone within our business that looks after that contract. And I'll always stick myself in that.
Keep an eye on what's going on.
Yeah, just to, and again, I like to see, and it could be that the client emails on a Friday night at 9 o'clock saying we need an extra driver for tomorrow, and then just seeing someone email back going, further to our telephone conversation, Danny's coming in at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I'll just be like, and it's my Friday night, I shouldn't really, I do, it's one of them.
But you're sitting there going,
and I'm going, do you know what, that's brilliant. Yeah, they're on it. It's a Friday night, and to let's face it, with emails, you can go, I didn't see it. Because we will say to our clients that don't email us, pick up the phone. I know it's a Friday night, but ring us, because we might
emails will get missed.
But to think, look, they've rung the client, said I've covered it, and then followed it up with an email, and you just think that's brilliant. I love the fact that gets done. I'm not saying that happens every time, of course, but like to see that, and I love being on them emails, and I could take myself out of them all and think, right, clear down me inbox, but I do like to be able to see things like that and see what's going on within the business, and again.
But then that way, nothing's a surprise.
No.
right?
Absolutely.
You had enough time on the tools yourself to be able to look at something and go, there's one or two ways this is going to play out, but in both scenarios, we're going to end up pissing the client off, or we're at risk here of losing this candidate in this process, and I can pinpoint where. So rather than you being like, oh, let me listen to your calls, or sitting there going to your branch manager, well, what the fuck happened? You're going, no, I could see what was happening. And when the time's right, you can step in. But equally, if you're like, actually, I think they need to learn this the hard way, you stay out of it.
Absolutely.
I know what's going on here, and this is not a surprise that this is going to go down this route.
And I think, so with that, you could have a client you've seen regular emails on a Friday, them asking for extras, and if we've not been able to cover it, I think, okay, right, well, we need to go back to this client and say, why you've needed an extra every Saturday morning for the last 5 weeks? Should we not just book you a guy for a Saturday morning? Or if we can't cover it, right, why can't we cover it? Is it because
what's happening?
What's happening? And then it might be that we go back to the client, and go, we need some more assessments because the pool's looking a bit thin at the moment. So there's lots of reasons and factors, but it just, again, being able to see it and without asking our branch managers each day or every hour or looking at numbers of calls in, calls out. Without all of that, I've got a good idea of where the business is at and where each client's at with things. You can look at, I look at certain reports we get from payroll, which is, client margin reports are always quite interesting, of course, and the T-Rev each week, looking at figures like that. Of course, I love looking at numbers, but they're the only real numbers I'm worried about in terms of the productivity of a branch, because if they're doing everything right that we've spoke about, then it's going to be reflected in that within that. And again, because I'm not part of our sales team, although I am in terms of when we deliver a presentation, I get, the last
you like to go along.
Absolutely. And I do, and I think it's again, that's not a control part from me, but I like to be able to sit there and talk to clients about what we can do. And again, in the pre-meeting meeting you had, the last 5 presentations we've been invited to, we've won 4 of them, and that's, again, myself and Paige. We've not got any. We've never had any formal training of building a sales pitch or a sales presentation. We had some, so we won a big presentation, a big client a year before last, and when we had some excellent feedback in terms of, so we won it, but then we also had some great feedback on how it could be better. And that was brilliant for us, because I've done so many presentations over the years where you just don't hear anything and you chase for, how did we get on that? And you sort of know the answer, but you've got to keep saying, how did we get on? How did we get on? And they're like, no, unfortunately you weren't successful. And the feedback will be minimal or non-existent. But the feedback we had from a client that we'd actually been successful with, and we had another one coming up like 4 weeks later, so we were like, brilliant, we can build that. And it was strange. Once the client said that to us, it was like, how did we not think to put that in there? And it was one of them as well where I think one of the things they said was one that I'd sort of taken out, because every client sort of almost expects that as an industry standard. But it became quite apparent again that no, they're not seeing that from agencies. They're not actually getting a good demonstration of how they ensure
so what you consider to be a prerequisite was actually something that they're not getting from their which
absolutely.
Okay.
And again, that was all built around compliance and how we manage that. And again, I know there's some brilliant software out on the market now, but the software we use is very good at demonstrating that as well. So it was quite an easy sort of, I say sell, but they'd already bought into us then, so it's just a case of showing them how we
peace of mind. So justifying that decision to buy with the facts. That's what that was.
Absolutely. And then we, again, that's another one where we've been awarded more business off the back of doing a great job at that site. We tendered for another client again where we'd make them tweaks. We won that, although that was quite a longer process, but they just wanted to make sure they were making the right decision, which is absolutely fine. So and then, like I say, we won 4 out of 5, and the one we didn't win was with a huge client, like multinational, all around the world, like massive company, that was the only one we didn't win. And we were still gutted, but we were sort of sat there with some of the big, and we're talking multinational agencies we're up against here as well.
Yeah, you're sat alongside PLCs going,
absolutely.
The fuck are we doing here?
Yeah. We were like, we should buy some of their shares because they're about to be awarded a lot more business. But yeah, absolutely. We're against them, and we're a bit like, we've got no chance, but let's go in and give it our all.
Why not?
And hope that
But that'll be remembered.
That'll be remembered.
Absolutely. You know, again, there's based on the conversations and stuff that I've had with these TAs and stuff, sometimes, well, the majority of them prefer dealing with the boutiques and the smaller businesses, but sometimes that decision is almost out of their hands because of the requirement and the size of the requirement. But that doesn't mean they don't forget about you. No. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that they're like, oh, we said no to them, so it's a no forever. It's okay, we went with this company. Yeah. So in this industry, say GI Group. But they will know that GI Group won't necessarily be able to deliver on every single thing.
Yeah.
And so when GI Group is struggling, they'll then say, okay, well, who have you got in your second tier? Right, have a chat with these guys because they pitched against you and we really liked them.
Yeah.
And so you almost get that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
that a number of times as a you know, at the time, a 5-person business in Coventry. You know, we were working with Jaguar Land Rover, National Grid, Cadent Gas, Eon Energy, like all the biggest names you could think of in the Midlands area. We were working with all of them because we had that kind of, listen, that's cool. We'll be second tier if you want, but we'll deliver. When you come to us, we'll deliver.
And I think as well, we've already had them reach out and go, look, we will be re-looking at things this far down the line, and we would like to chat to you again. So, yeah, a door never closes forever, does it? No. You know, there's always a chance. We've got, don't get me wrong, there's some big clients out there that we've been banging on the door of for ages, and we just can't seem to be able to.
This is where this is where that switch and that focus to slight more branding focused, marketing enabled business will probably give you the results that you're trying to yield with what you've done so far, right?
I said to you, didn't I,
you
about
get
perception.
You get on the blower to a HR manager or HRD at those places and say, listen, we're running a Modern Slavery Act, training session in Rugby. Have you got? I know you got 3 sites in Rugby. Do you want to send some people across to it?
Yeah,
we've got 5 seats. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Who are you again?
Yeah.
Fuck! You're in my do not deal with.
Yeah.
And no, I might start dealing with you now. Okay.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That's my afternoon booked up. I'll be straight onto the BDMs and sales director after this, going, just make some of them calls. No, look, I'll get, and that is such a great point. We never feel with any client when we can't get in there that's it, done forever. There's many reasons why, and there's clients that we've probably thought that, do you know what, let's not push that too much. We're not that bothered about working with that client. And I do think that's a great thing about our industry now. The agencies can be selective too, because
there's no shortage of people to work for.
And there's not every client out there is worth working with. Some of them will only pay the tiniest margins in the world and expect the world for it. And it's just impossible to deliver, or at least it's impossible to deliver, with a sustainable,
consistent and sustainably.
It really is, because the everything we have to do our end, and you can tell if we've been up against agencies, and we had one client who had like it was like a bid for but it was the lowest. It was who would go to the lowest margin, like a live auction.
Fuck off.
And we got to a point where we were like, no, we can't go any lower than that. We had our number that was like, we can't. And then,
and we're not going to.
No, but where it got to was like, how is anyone doing that?
So I always used to think this, right? Never lose sight of the fact that, and I had this is a business mentor that told me this. He was like, look, don't lose sight of the fact that other people's pockets are deeper than yours.
Yeah.
And all they'll be doing is boxing every fucker out, working at a loss until they're so embedded in the business, and then they jack the rates up.
Yeah.
We can't do this anymore.
No.
We, for whatever reason, profitability reports come out, we've missed our earnings, whatever it might be, we are enforcing our right to jack up the rates by X amount.
Yeah.
And the client's then left in a position where they're like, okay, well, we can't now go back out to market because everybody now thinks that we're that agency that want you to work at 12p margins. So now we can't go out and be like, right, does anyone want to bid again? Well, no, you're all right, love, thank you. No. We know what margins you work to. Now we don't want it. So then their back's against the wall. And that's all this agency have done is they've gone, okay, how much of a slap in the face are we willing to take before we're able to then go, put the rates up? and then everybody in that scenario, everyone loses.
I suppose from our point of view, like I spoke about earlier, where we had that sort of, I call it a loss leader contract, but it weren't really. We like I say, we'd had a carrot dangle, but it was very small numbers. When I say we were losing money on it, I'm talking like tens of pounds a week, because it was two bookings a day, right? So it was never a big deal. We might have had to say to a guy, really need you there tonight, we'll pay you an extra 2 hours or something like that. So it's never a big deal. I guess for one of them, if it's an agency that turns over hundreds of millions a week, for them that loss leader contract could look a lot bigger than what our one did. So it could be that as well. But in general, I just think you're never gonna get that level of service if there's nothing in it for the agency. No. You're just not. You're absolutely not. And look, we're quite open. I think with any agencies now, you know, most clients want to see a rate card. They want to know what your pay rate is, which is usually in line with what they're paying their own staff now.
What they want is transparency.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, they're not looking to bat you down on rates. What they want is transparency. In exactly the same way when your bill comes from a restaurant, if they just bought it out and went £78, please, and you're just like, hang on a minute, where's the optimization?
Yeah.
Give me that.
Although I don't. Do you look at the?
No, I don't. Unless, unless I've got a reason to be like, hang on a minute.
Yeah, don't look.
My father-in-law's one of those. He's like, you know, down to the penny will be like, all right, well, you could have 2 drinks, so you're paid slightly more. Yeah, for me,
if
it's
someone
normally
starts
like
chopping up a bill at the end, I'm like, no.
But if the bill came without the itemization,
no, I get it.
Immediately you're going to be like, I ain't going to look at it,
especially if it's toppy. And I agree, and it's actually quite refreshing that clients do want to see, okay, so what do you pay the temp? Then what are your employment costs? And they're all broken down by category. It's not like we just give them a figure. They see all of the employment costs, and then they see our margin. And that never used to be the case. And I guess this was probably pre-IR35. That was when it all changed. You know, and IR35 for us, we hid behind that excuse for probably 18 months going, oh, well, we're not doing as well as we were back then, but it's because IR35. And it's like, look, we can't keep this done now. It's done. Everyone's PAYE. It's done. Let's move on.
This is the problem, though, isn't it? Is because it's harder to explain to a client when the candidate thinks they're on £15 an hour and your charge out to the client is £20 an hour. The maths is fairly straightforward. Yeah. But when your charge out to the client is £26.58 and the candidate's only getting £15.73, the client's immediately thinking, you fucking better not be making that difference in the middle. That's an extortionate amount of money. And then they see it broken down and they're like, fucking hell, right, okay. They ain't making a huge amount. In fact, they're probably not making more than they were before. And then if anyone asks them, because again, they have finance teams they've got to report to. They've got direct lines and like management teams that are going to go, why are we spending so much on temporary staff?
Yeah.
They need to be able to justify it as well.
Absolutely.
All you're doing is equipping them with information. And why would you not do that?
No.
Right?
And again, I think, what you said, transparency. And I think whether it's in the rate, whether it's in their requirements or just the relationship in general, it
your
just
ability to deliver on that particular requisition.
Goes such a long way, just being transparent with a client, talking to them openly and honestly. And it can be difficult because, you know, for some clients, they will feel that you've got to give them that answer right now. And it's one of the things I tell my team, if you don't know the answer, don't be afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that. I need to come back to you with that. And this isn't saying they're not knowledgeable about our industry, because this could be any array of questions that they're asked. But, you know, don't be afraid to say.
I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
No, exactly.
You don't want me to give you the wrong answer either.
I've sat there in a sales presentation and said that, and I thought, I'm not gonna sit here, and I could have just gone on a long chat about and just tried to pick something, but they're not idiots sat around there. They would have known what I was doing. So just be honest. And again, I think that goes a long way. I actually think one of the presentation where I said that, I think we did end up winning the business as well. And again, I think they might have had some sales teams that they asked that question to, just give them a load of spiel and then go, do you know what? That's what we're going to get from that agency.
That's it. People see through that sort of stuff. Though. Oh, you're that kind of person then. All right, okay. No, not for me.
Definitely.
No, mate. Well, look, I want to thank you for giving up your time, mate. This has been really insightful. I think for a lot of the people listening, it will spark some thoughts and some ideas and some like, oh, okay, That's interesting. Didn't think of that and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. If anyone listening wants to reach out to you, get some kind of advice, just run a few things by you, or just expand their network, how do people get in touch with you guys?
So there's a few ways. If it's grafters you're looking to get hold of, if it's with regards to work, then contact our sales director, Paige Castles. If it's for just a chat with me or to know more about our business, by all means, drop me a line on LinkedIn or give me an email, danny@graftersrecruit.co.uk. I'm always open to, and again, this is what this is all about, really, me opening up my network and networking more in this industry. So please do feel free to contact me.
Mate, I want to thank you for your
Much
time.
appreciated.
Thank
Thanks
you,
very
dude.
much.
That's it for another episode of RecTalk. We'll see you again on either Wednesday or Friday. New episodes drop every Wednesday and Friday. Thank you, and see you next time. There we go.
Thanks for that. Much
Thank you, mate.
appreciated.
That was good.
Is that good? Yeah.